Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Cross Examination. Today, I have a special guest with me, Will Shalter, who before had joined me to ramble on about stories in movies and books, and we're going to do some more of that today. Will, why don't you just give everybody a little bit of update about who you are, what you do, and what we might hear in the background?
Okay, my name is Will Shalter. I'm a high school English teacher at here in Central Illinois, and I enjoy books. I enjoy movies. I really enjoy discussing them on my free time with good friends like Ethan.
All right, awesome. And in the background, we might hear bells and things because
Yes, I am at school.
we're actually on Will's lunch hour, so we'll
Yep.
try to dive right in. So today, we're going to talk. Last time we talked a lot about movies and different things, but the show we're doing is a lot about books, and I'm bringing a lot of authors that you may have never heard of, hopefully to your attention. So I kind of wanted to start off this week's episode by kind of diving into some book topics. First off, I'll give you a little bit of an update on where my books are at. In the U.S., we recently had the release of The Taker. So if you're in the U.S., check that out. Drop a review on Amazon if you do. Also in the UK, we just had the release of all of my books. I was actually part of a merger that went on there and lost an editor of some of the biggest publishers there, and so with Random House and Penguin when they merged, and so the first 3 books in the series were released there, but then the other ones weren't. Now you will be able to get all of them. In fact, you can get a whole bundle of all 6 in the series for one price. So if you're in the UK, check that out. In Germany, got the next book in the new Ackerman series will be coming out next February. So go ahead and get on and pre-order that. And I'll try to say the name, and Will, you might have to correct me. Die Stimme de Rasha? How do you say that?
I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, you're no help then.
Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, that's coming out. So get on and check that out. It's the second in the Ackerman kind of spin-off series, and I think everybody will really like this one. I think it turned out pretty cool. It's based on the Black Rose Killer is the villain in this one, and takes you on what's sort of an interactive murder experience that he creates, catering to other like-minded people on the dark web. So, and Ackerman gets to be a participant in that, and so we get to see Ackerman where he's actually helpless for a change. So I think I think everyone there in Germany definitely check that out. But enough about me. I wanted to get into some books and just some book recommendations. Just throw out some things that have a little segment here where we can just discuss books that we think you should read. And so, Will, do you have one that you'd like to recommend to the viewership?
Yeah, one of the books that I actually read over the summer, A Gentleman in Moscow, I think, by Amor Towles. He wrote a book called Rules of Civility, and that's kind of his big work. And this particular novel takes place during the Russian Revolution, and it's really a great book about a particular aristocrat that's trying to get free of his world, and he's basically a prisoner in the Metropole Hotel in downtown Moscow, and he tries to find his way into a new life of being exiled into one place, and he meets interesting characters, and he discovers things about the hotel, that he's never known before, as he's a prisoner there and can't explore outside the hotel.
So is this was purely fictional, or was this based on
Yeah,
anything?
this is purely fictional. It's as far as I know. I mean, I don't believe it's based off of any one particular character, a historical character. But yeah, it does take place in early 20th century Russia, and really a great novel as far as how the author combines the reader and the protagonist to one space, and produces from that space a thrilling tale of how a person can survive in those tight quarters.
Hmm. Yeah, very cool. Uh, Something that, so go ahead and say the name of that again.
Oh, a Gentleman in Moscow.
And what was who was the author?
Amor Towles, Towles.
Okay. The one I'm gonna throw out there for everybody to check out is something very different from what Will's describing here. The A long time ago, when I first started reading, really reading as an adult, I, of course, read Goosebumps books when I was
Mm-hmm.
young, and Stephen King in high school when I was forced to, and things like that. But when I really started, got to be an adult and started wanting to get into books and stories, and started reading. One that I was turned on to by a good friend who I shared an office with at the time was The Keep by F. Paul Wilson. And it's a really cool book that takes place in basically there's this keep in Romania in 1941, and the Nazis come in and they awaken a dark entity that was being contained in the keep. So it kind of starts off for F. Paul Wilson what was the start of a oh, there we go with some of the
There's a bell.
it really goes for what F. Paul Wilson was the start of, like I don't even know how many books you would count in the series, because there's so many that kind of connect tangentially to what he calls the secret history of the world. So there's this big thing, and it starts with or really started for me with The Keep. Another great one and see, these are kind of standalone. So the next one in what he calls the adversary cycle would be The Tomb, which is about what I want to talk to you about is Repairman Jack, which is really kind of the core of the series. And Repairman Jack is kind of a fixer guy. He's just blends in. But he's a man of like decisive violence, and he's kind of, he lives by his own code, completely off the grid. He's got a real colorful, group of characters that supply him and that inhabit his world. And but he starts getting caught up in this kind of cosmic shadow war between the otherness and the ally in this series. And I'm actually now, after all these years, I've read all these books, like in it goes, the adversary, there was like The Keep, The Tomb, which is the first Repairman Jack book, and then there was The Touch, Reborn, Reprisal, and Night World. And the Night World was like 91, I think it came out, and that was actually the last book. So that's the last book in the series. And then there was the whole Repairman Jack series that then came on after that leads up to it. And so I recently just finished the last official one in the Repairman Jack series, The Dark at the End. And then now I'm reading Night World, which is the final thing. So I'm hyped up about this series right now. I just read like 4 of them in a row, because I knew I've been holding off, because I'm like, oh, as soon as I start, I hit like a place where I was like, okay, I'm okay with the way it is right now. I don't want to with Jack's world.
Yes.
And so I don't want to end it yet. But then I knew as soon as I started, I was just going to read them all
Hmm.
one right after the other. So I'm almost finished with Night World now, and so which brings the end of like this 20 book cycle. So I'm jazzed about it right now. So I just want to throw that out there to the readership to check out. If you want to just check out one, just check out The Tomb, and it's basically Jack. He's a fixer. He helps people. He's picky about his clients. He's not a hitman, anything like that. He just he helps people when they got like a situation that the cops can't help them with. Well, he gets caught up in this thing that involves the we'll just say supernatural elements. There's a really cool creature involved in the tomb that is really kind of neat and different, and so definitely check that one out for a really cool kind of action horror creature feature kind of thing. And The Keep is another one that was kind of the start of the adversary cycle. So if you get into those, and definitely start checking them out, because then it's really a really cool series. So, and I love F. Paul Wilson and love his writing. Why don't we touched on something in what your description of the book that you were recommending,
Okay.
about place, about how he was confined to this hotel, and you kind of touched on the importance of place. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. What's so fascinating about it is the idea, when an author looks at a particular story, where do you place that character, into that realm? What does that place look like? I mean, could it be as simple as a courtroom? Can it be as simple as, a hotel? And sometimes I find oftentimes when an author or a writer tells a story and they set boundaries for themselves, that it often tells a better story, and it gives guidelines to where they are, right? And then that particular novel, that's what's so fascinating about it, is that there's all these things, happening outside of those four walls, and and outside of those four walls do affect what's inside. However, the protagonist is not able to operate outside of those walls physically, and by doing so, I think as it helps the reader greatly, because you're kind of you don't have to constantly describe necessarily the place, but rather how the character interacts with the place in order to understand where they're at. I mean, we see this time and time again with movies and television shows and things like that. That by limiting the space, sometimes you create a more rich environment for the character. And I always find it fascinating that oftentimes it's almost like early writers get this, like, I don't know, like James Bond itch. They want to take their characters to far off lands and take them everywhere, and it just kind of confuses the reader sometimes. It's like, oh, okay, now we're in Maui. Whereas sometimes when a good exercise, especially for early writers, no, let's stick to one place. Can you write a story about being in one place and make it more about the characters and their effects on that place, or the opposite, right? The effects the place has on the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As we were talking about this earlier, I was reminded actually of a chapter from the book I'm reading that really goes along with that the character was in Maui, and it described a lot of, it really gave a good sense of, like, you felt like you were in that place and this, but the way that the author did it, that F. Paul Wilson did it, was that it was incorporated into that character's their mindset and what those places meant to them, and how it had helped them to gain peace from their kind of previous life, if you will,
Right.
as they were kind of had moved to this place. Um, and so it gave a sense of that, but it was, it's doing double duty there. And I think that we always have to run a fine line between describing too much
Hmm.
and describing too little. You
Yeah.
definitely don't want people to be, the whole talking heads thing where it's just two characters talking at each other,
Hmm.
is not what you want. You want
Right.
those people to be in a place, in the reader's mind. And so it's just always a fine line to walk. I mean, you can say that the person, oh, they ran up the hill. Well, you don't have to describe what a hill is. People know what a hill is,
Right.
but
Right.
well, maybe what's on the hill, what's and what kind of vegetation is there. Maybe these are
Right.
things we need to know to drop it into a place. I mean, if it's a hill in the swamp is a lot different from a hill in a meadow, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so these are important things you need to get into, but as we've discussed before, you have to run a fine line between showing and telling.
Hmm.
And so it really all goes back to, how does the place relate to the character, and how does
Right.
the character relate to the place?
Right.
And so, is that space annoying to the character? Are the
Hmm.
buzzing lights, are the, is there a furnace that's always running, or something like that that's a problem? And
Right.
so, like I say, it just always has to kind of go back to being informed by that. Anything to add?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I saw it in a film recently, and it really bothered me actually. How that it was. I was watching Black Klansman, and John David Washington, who's the main character in the film, um, plays a black police officer in Colorado Springs, and Spike Lee is the director, and great director. I mean, nobody would argue Spike Lee's not a great director. Um, Maybe he's not your style, but that's besides the point. But one of the things that I have family that live in Colorado Springs, and I noticed immediately that they're not filming in Colorado Springs. That looking at the character, and it, because they didn't develop the background, so to speak, the environment that that character was in, it I felt like he kind of missed part of the boat. So I did a little bit of research on it, and they actually filmed it in Pennsylvania,
Mm.
and so it had this more eastern, United States, grittier kind of almost Philadelphia feel to it. But if you've been to Colorado Springs, it does not feel anything like Philadelphia, and it kind of does a disservice to the oddity of a black police officer in Colorado Springs, because Colorado Springs is as white as it gets. I mean, hey, it's
Mm.
there's an Air Force Academy there. It's granola, and I mean, there's just not that large of a black population there. And if you actually filmed, I think the picture actually in Colorado Springs, that he would create that dichotomy of a black police officer in Colorado Springs, whereas the novel itself, you would get that in your head that, oh, this is weird, that there's not that large of a population like that, especially in the 70s in Colorado Springs. But with the film, it was just off to me. So that's an example of translation into a film where I just felt like they missed the boat. But oftentimes, masterful, right? And Stephen King's masterful at his ability to create a space in his novels, and that exposition of character connected to space as well. That sometimes the character imposes their will on the environment, or vice versa, the environment imposes their will onto the character.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think, honestly, for me, that it's something that um, has been a challenge,
Yeah.
as a writer. And that's, I always advocate for people going actually to the places and experiencing them, seeing what uh, there are just things that you get from actually going that you'll never get from
Hmm.
Google Earth or
Right.
or
Right.
any online source. And so that's important. I mean, but sometimes you can't, and sometimes
No, no, of
sometimes
course.
you can't go to all these places. You can't do
Right.
all those things. It's just
Yeah.
you know, especially if when you're starting out and you're not a full-time writer,
No.
you know. But I like to try to set my books in a place I would like to experience. I'd like to go,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so that's kind of the neat thing about being a writer is you do get to kind of say, well, what do I want to learn about? What do I
Hmm.
want
Hmm.
to, what culture do I want to explore for this character?
Hmm.
So you get to kind of dive into different
Hmm.
topics in different places, and then you get to, maybe go and experience those places, which is one of the really cool parts uh, about being a writer. And so
Hmm.
I definitely advocate. I am an advocate, and I advocate for
Yes.
um, for people actually going to these places and actually experiencing them. Um, a book of mine, Blind Justice, that takes place in Washington D.C.
Hmm.
just would have been completely different if I hadn't actually went to the Pentagon and got a private tour and been in the
Hmm.
basement of the Capitol and did all this stuff. And I talk about this with Anthony Franz, who um, is a previous episode for anyone listening. If you haven't checked that out, there's a previous episode with him, and he works in the Supreme Court, and so he's well acquainted with this world and knew a chief of staff of a senator and the press secretary for the Pentagon, and so he kind of got us into some backdoor stuff, and we just had a heyday doing all that. But also that it gets the things that you can't, the smells, the sounds, the things that you just can't get without being there.
And I'm
Um,
drawing a blank on one of your books, right? The one, didn't you have a book that took place in Roswell, New Mexico?
I did, yeah,
Yeah.
I did one in Roswell, and I hope I did. It was important to even the killer of this. It is kind of steeped in this culture. I mean,
Right.
their high school football team is based off of this. The
Right.
diners, or everything is alien themed. The
Right. Right.
the lampposts are, and so it's kind of an easy one because it's just such a the
Yeah.
tourist trap aimed at this one claim to fame.
Mm-hmm.
And so it, then gets to branch out from that. And I had a lot of fun with that book.
Yeah.
Uh just getting into crop circles and
Right.
the
Right.
alien abductions and
Right.
yeah, and there were there's really only one kind of alien abduction thing that is discussed at all in the novel. um but it's pretty chilling. It's kind of one of those moments where,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, somebody says, oh, I don't believe in that, and then the person says, oh, really? Well, have you ever heard about this? and
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of walk away going, that, and it's a
Ooh.
true account that's included
Right.
there. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
there's an example of the place actually, like, informing the story. And
Right. Right.
but you mentioned, we'll kind of get back onto the movie track here a little bit.
Oh, okay.
You
Okay.
mentioned Black Klansman.
Yep.
So uh, John David Washington.
Right.
Um,
Right.
what did you? I haven't seen Black Klansman, and I've seen Tenet, and you haven't seen Tenet, and I've seen. So
Yeah.
we can each talk about those. But what did you think of his performance in Black Klansman?
Well, in Black, I mean, that's the thing that makes the film shine. And I mean, it was nominated for some Oscars, and I think it won for Best Screenplay. That John David Washington did an amazing job, and so did Adam Driver. Adam Driver is just an amazing actor. I love Adam Driver, and he really hasn't been in a whole lot besides that film. That really was kind of his breakout role. And I wanted to go back and watch it because of Tenet, because Christopher Nolan doesn't really pick new and upcoming people oftentimes. Maybe for a side character, or even then, he still picks people that kind of have done fairly well for themselves. You think of Matthew McConaughey, you think of Christian Bale. You go through that list of actors that he's picked up, as lead roles with Leonardo DiCaprio, and they are well established in their own right. Whereas John David Washington for this film, I mean, he does not have a large filmography to draw from.
Mm-hmm.
That he must have seen something in him that he really liked from Black Klansman, and he definitely does do an outstanding job in carrying the film. Next to Adam Driver, those two carry the film together, and and Spike Lee did a good job, I think, with the sensitivity of the subject. But like I said, it goes back to that, a little bit of the for somebody that's been to Colorado Springs, I feel like he missed a bit of the boat there. But yeah, and so what did you think of Tenet? I mean, John David Washington's as the protagonist, isn't that his name?
Yeah, and I don't think he's never given a name in the.
He's never given a name. They just
no,
call
I don't
him
think he's ever
protagonist on
given a
credits.
name
Okay.
at all. Like I kind of thought about that afterwards. I was like, they never I don't think he ever has a name. But yeah, he does a great job. I thought he was definitely one of the highlights of the film. Also, Robert Pattinson was whose work, I'm not a fan of some of his work in the past.
Right.
I won't get into what work
No.
that might be, but we'll just say that. But definitely, I was hopeful, like, for the Batman that's going to be coming out, Batman movie, and him taking on the role of Batman, because I thought he did a great job in Tenet. And I've seen his more recent work is definitely
way better.
Indicative of him being able to pull off that Batman role. But I thought Tenet was great, and like you said, John David Washington, I definitely think he's kind of a one to watch, and kind of an up and coming guy, and which a film that, as we were talking before we started recording here, that you had said you had just rewatched Black Panther, with us losing Chadwick Boseman, who was just an incredible actor. I was actually we were watching 21 Bridges not very long ago, and I commented to my wife, like, this guy is going to be like the next Denzel. He's going to have a 40-year career, and he's going to be like that guy, and because he's great in that role. Of course, very different from Black Panther. The King of Wakanda, different from this. He's a detective in New York, but just he just does a great job, or did a great job, and so it's a very big loss. I really kind of felt, I was wow, I saw that, and just really kind of felt it even more than, we've lost a lot of really great actors this year, but most of them have been older. Most of them have been, and he was just like, wow, somebody right in their prime.
Right.
So yeah, very sad, but I definitely think John David Washington has the potential to be like what I said, like that kind of actor that has that long career and really, can do some great things, because I thought he did a great job in Tenet. And to give a little bit about Tenet, just a quick review. I thought I loved it. It was great action, great acting, mind-blowing, like, kind of really original plot. It basically is like, I'm sure people have seen the previews and things, and so to give you a little idea of what it's about, but it's basically not time travel, but time inversion. So technology that has been sent from the future to us has the ability to take an object and reverse the direction it's flowing through time. So you can take any object, and that includes people, and reverse them. And so they're now traveling backward through time instead of forward. So they're still aging, they're still whatever, but they're traveling, and it gets really trippy. And people talk, like, it is one of those, I would definitely, like, the first time there were things I was like, what? like what's going, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
definitely a rewatch kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so I definitely understand people, you know, if you're not wanting to be challenged. But the cool thing about it is there's a lot of just great action and cool scenes. And so it's not all about this. You don't have to be like all focused up in, well, how does time inversion work? And well, what does that mean for this? And what is it, you know,
Yeah.
and so you can still look at it from that standpoint, but then if you really want to get into the mind-blowing parts and start looking at it, you know, it really gets cool. And so I think if you're a fan of Inception, it's definitely something to check out. But that brings us to
Oh, can I ask you one question about it?
yes, go ahead.
It's classic Christopher Nolan, right? The 747 scene in the airport.
Yeah.
So, because right, I guess none of it is CGI, is what I researched, you know, because I did look into some of it, and I guess the whole idea is that he actually took a 747 and did what he did. Like, what was that scene? Just amazing, or
Yeah, it was very cool. It was very cool.
okay,
It was actually cooler. The coolest part of it was actually to do with the characters of where Robert Pattinson is, and I think
okay,
this is in one of the previews.
hmm,
But like where he's describing, like, okay, we're gonna do something with a plane, and he's like,
yeah,
okay, well, you know, he's like, oh, I'm not,
yeah,
no, it's gonna be on the ground, and he's like, well, what kind of plane are we talking about? He goes, well, you know, and that's where it kind of ended. But it was just a cool kind of interaction, the character moment between them. But
okay,
yeah, it was a very cool scene. And then see the a cool thing about Tenet is like the stuff that happens, it like all comes full circle. So
right,
like things that are happening now, and you see things like that will come back because they swing back onto those same things, you know. And so
oh,
like it gets real
right,
trippy
right.
with all
Wait
that.
a minute, I'm
So
having a
like
flash.
that scene you get to see it
Right,
in reverse and forward
yeah,
as people are traveling backward through it and as people are living it,
right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, it makes sense because it kind of goes back to it's almost like the start, right? Nolan's right first big hit, the one with Carrie Ann Moss. I'm drawing a blank. Why am I drawing a blank?
Oh,
Um,
Memento.
yeah, Memento, right? Kind of
Yes.
similar idea,
Oh,
right? Start from
love,
the
yes, love Memento. If anybody
yeah,
hasn't seen Memento,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
actually told in reverse,
right,
and the dude has a condition where he forgets everything every like 7 minutes or
yeah, and he has to
something like
tattoo
that. And so
himself.
he's tattooing himself. He tattoos himself with information he's trying to find his wife's murderer.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, but the whole story is told like in reverse. So you get like a segment and then a segment and then it leads up to. So
hmm,
yeah, but very very cool. What
yeah.
were you going to
No,
say?
I was just going to say it's kind of like that, you know, that he's kind of because there's several scenes when that has time in reverse because the story is told in reverse, you know.
Right.
And,
Well, but it's from a visual standpoint, it was so cool with some of the reverse scenes because you're seeing things happen, only they're in this
reverse time frame. Yeah.
reverse time, and so they're happening backwards, and then they're, you know, and so it's all kind of weird, and then it flashes to, oh, now here's a character that's in normal time experiencing the same thing. And so it's very cool experience, and it's just the whole idea of it, the whole just concept. I mean, it's
Mhm.
basically like one of the newer James Bond movies, only they told James Bond that, hey, there's a weapon that can do this and you need to go. That's basically what the story is. So,
Cool.
you know, and the time inversion then plays into that.
Mhm.
And so it's in this like espionage world.
Mhm.
So there's just a lot of different it's a pretty cool multifaceted film. But
Neat.
that is one option that people have, and
Right.
brings us to a topic of the return of theaters. People are now going back to theaters. I've
Mhm.
been twice myself,
Mhm.
actually, to a theater
Mhm.
where we had to. In one of the theaters, it's kind of was kind of interesting because in one of the theaters, like no one was wearing a mask,
Hmm.
and then in one of them, you were required. One was more local, one was an AMC theater. In the
Ah,
AMC theater, you were required
Mm.
it was even supposed to be like, unless you are eat like, except when you're enjoying our delicious snacks,
Yes.
you must be wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And so we were actually watching the movie, and I'm like, I'm eating popcorn, and Gina would be like, put your mask on. And I'm like, I take one piece and go, I'm still eating popcorn, And I'd sit and I'm still eating popcorn. And then finally I'm like, okay, forget it. I'll just put the mask on. And holding the popcorn is more annoying than putting the mask on at this point. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, everybody had to be wearing a mask when going to the bathroom, getting things.
Mhm.
And they actually gave us here's an interesting thing, the butter machines that they have that squirts out the butter. They gave us that in like a little cup. Do your own butter. So that it was
How
just,
is it more sanitary? I mean,
I don't know. I really don't.
I'm
There
curious.
are a lot. I don't ask questions these days. It's just, you kind of just, oh man,
Corona land.
got to be loosey goosey. Um, so yeah, where people are going back to theaters, but obviously, most of your theaters, actually New York and Los Angeles, I do not believe are open.
No.
I believe all of their theaters are closed down. A lot of the theaters across the country, even the ones, many are still closed down, and even the ones that are open are reduced capacity. So it's really changing the whole
Yeah.
gamut of the industry. Um,
Yeah, and it's really sad because the ones that aren't going to survive are the small business owners, the ones that are the independent theaters. It really is. It's kind of spelling the demise of them.
well,
Really. I mean, I don't know if they have the
honestly, I don't know
capital.
if I mean, yes, that's definitely true. Um, but I also, I don't think that AMC or any of the chains
Yeah,
are immune to this. I
you could see some big chains falling.
yeah, I mean, AMC, I don't know that how they can sustain what they've got going on right now, especially when they're getting so much of a reduced
Right.
income, and they're probably employing more people
Yeah. Yeah.
for cleaning and for
Hmm.
disinfecting, and it's sad, and
Hmm.
which I think it's awesome what Christopher Nolan did. I mean, he's kind of this champion for the big screen, to keep the big
Yes.
screen going, and I think it's really awesome what he did
Right.
with releasing Tenet, even though it could have, I mean, nobody would have batted an eye if he would have said, no, we're pushing this thing back. We're gonna be like, do like everybody else, and we're gonna wait until this thing's over. We're gonna try to wait it out. But he was like, we need to, if we don't do something now,
Hmm.
the theaters might not be coming back.
Right.
And so, I think that was really cool. A couple other ones too. Have you seen any of these? Unhinged, Bill and Ted, any of the ones that are out now?
No, I haven't really had an opportunity. We literally like over Labor Day weekend and everything. I think, isn't that when it came out? Bill and Ted, was it the 31st or was it over the weekend?
Yeah,
This
yeah, it
weekend,
was, yeah. August
family,
31st, I think, was the release.
August 31st. Yeah, so I hadn't had an opportunity to see that. So, because that's the other flip side of it, right? You have Bill and Ted's third film and Mulan, Disney released as
Hmm.
well on the small screen, so to speak. And no, I didn't get a chance to see the third one. I'm a huge Keanu Reeves fan. Obviously, I just haven't found the time to sit down and really devote the time to it to watch it.
Well, I own it, so because I opted for the $5. There was a $5 upcharge, and you could just own the film.
Oh
So
yeah, I mean at that point, what's the point?
yeah, I was like,
Like I mean,
yeah, 19.99 or 20. Well, I'll just do the 25.
yeah,
So yeah. But so if you ever want to watch Bill and Ted 3,
might come over
yeah,
either way.
definitely cool. I definitely think it was a cool
Okay.
end of the series. There was my favorite scene in Bill and Ted 3, and I know a lot of people listening to this probably have never even seen don't even know what Bill and Ted are and
Bogus
all
Journey
this. I
or
loved Bill and Ted. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Mm-hmm.
I like Bogus Journey. I think might be my
Yeah.
favorite of the series.
One of my favorite scenes is the chess set when they're playing chess with Death. And,
oh yeah, with Death.
it's
Yeah,
one of my favorite scenes. I don't know what it is.
yeah. So there's a scene in the new one where they recruit their daughters. So it's Bill and Ted are trying to go forward in time to steal the song that will unite humanity from themselves.
Right.
And their future selves keep like trying to sabotage them and do stupid stuff. So it goes off the rail there. But then at the same time, the daughters decide that they're going to recruit the greatest band in history. And so they're like going throughout history, finding like the musicians and stuff. And so the first person they go to, of course, is Jimi Hendrix, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, in my opinion. Anyway,
yes, definitely.
And I don't think I'm alone in that. But there's one scene in it that just like I was just grinning from ear to ear, where they've already recruited Jimi Hendrix, and they go to recruit Mozart.
Okay.
And so Mozart's up in like
in Austria or something
in his thing, and he's doing whatever he's doing. And Jimmy like, yeah, I dig that, kind of thing. And he busts out his guitar and he starts playing along with him, and it is so cool. Just cool. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then he comes out, and Jimmy says something to him like, "How's it hanging, Wolfie?" or something, And I'm like, "Yes, love this. This is awesome."
So that's kind of their history project. I didn't understand that. Okay, so their history project this time is bringing these artists to create the greatest band ever.
It's kind of just the same way as like what Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where they do this history project.
Yeah, they do the history project, and they bring Joan of Arc and all these other characters.
Genghis Khan.
That's great. I love that premise.
Sigmund Freud. Awesome. Socrates, as they call him. Socrates to the rest of us. I don't. For some reason, my dad always thought that was funny. Like I always remember him like grabbing it, like going Socrates, like like he thought that was like old Socrates. Every time he'd talk about that movie, as he'd think of them calling him Socrates.
So good.
But so yeah, another one that is out in theaters that I actually did go see. It was the first one to really kind of the canary going down into the coal mine, if you will, for the theaters, was Unhinged, and which I thought was a really cool movie. Kind of that good, just small. I just saw something where the social media promotional account for Unhinged did like a thing, like made a poster that was like looked like the Tenet poster and said, "The movie that won't confuse you." And it said, and it said something like, there was another quote with the tag, but it was something along those same lines, like, if you don't want to have your mind blown, if you just want to, because that's what it is. It's just a simple, straightforward, kind of cool thriller that, and I really appreciated that about it. Like that it's not that like, oh, we've got it, but it's like a really good, intense, thriller. And then, of course, that all hinged on on Russell Crowe, and his performance was really great. And so yeah, and Russell Crowe, actually, when I had said about how I was talking to somebody else about how great he was as a bad guy in this movie. It starts out, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what the movie is of Unhinged, if you're looking at options for going to the theaters. It is a movie about a guy. He has basically gone off the rails. His wife has left him, he's getting a divorce, all this. And so he he's popping pills and all this kind of stuff, and
Becomes unhinged. Yeah.
okay, my life's over, forget it, I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill her new guy. That's scene number one.
Yeah.
He goes in, he kills him, he burns the house down. He does this. So cut to this lady, she's late for work, her kids gonna be late for school, she's trying to get on the all the build up, and she comes up behind a truck that the light turns green, but he doesn't go. So she starts laying on the horn, and doing all this, and it's of course Russell Crowe. So then at that point he fixates on her and starts
tormenting
on her as like another what he thinks is wrong with society, basically.
Right.
And he doesn't care. He's ready for suicide by cop anyway. He knows that they're looking for him. He's and so it's just this really cool, like, just collision of these two people's lives, and Russell Crowe is just awesome in this. And I was telling someone else about this movie, and they commented about, oh, well, Russell Crowe, I usually don't see him as a bad guy. I thought about that, and the first time when I really noticed Russell Crowe as an actor and really was like, oh yeah, this guy's awesome, was Virtuosity.
Virtuosity.
A kind of forgotten film that was Denzel Washington, and Russell Crowe was the villain. And Russell Crowe was supposed to be this character that was like the amalgam of many serial killers. Like he was a virtual character, so he was an artificial intelligence, but they'd taken like the brain, the thought patterns of all these different things and made this like supposed to be the perfect villain. And it was to test cops in a virtual environment. But then of course he gets out into the real world, and Denzel Washington has to stop him. That's basically Virtuosity. But it's a really cool kind of different movie. Did nanotechnology before nanotechnology was even a thing. That movie dealt with nanotechnology. So, and not in a realistic way at all. I mean,
no,
we'll throw that out there. It's not like, it's totally, it's a very like high octane, not cartoonish, but definitely pushing the envelope kind of, Russell Crowe's character is very theatrical, we'll say.
Right. I mean, in very late 90s, there's like this pocket of that, right? If you think about it, like late 90s films, you have Matrix on the end, right, of the whole thing, but then you have Virtuosity in there. And then what was the other one that came up? It was with Keanu Reeves. He had like a hard drive in the back of his head.
Johnny Mnemonic?
Yeah, Johnny Mnemonic, right? I mean, I think that was 95, 90. It seemed like there's this whole, technology thriller kind of thing that, kind of came out during that time period. And then I think it was 9/11 hit, and then they just stopped, we're
kind of like looking into the virtual world. The computers were first starting to really hit, and we were seeing how fast the growth was coming with computers. And as you mentioned that, there's one kind of a recommendation for people if they want to check out something that is, kind of a hidden gem, is the 13th Floor. Is a movie that goes along with what you were the topics you were just saying, very kind of matrixy virtual environment kind of thing, but it's on a little bit smaller scale. It's more of a mystery than a action movie like what Matrix would be, but very cool movie that kind of I don't hear people talk about that one much. So definitely check out the 13th Floor if you're looking for a good sci-fi, kind of near future type movie. Another one, I mentioned that one as a kind of diamond in the rough, if you will, or for forgotten cool movie, hidden gem. But there's another one I'd like to share with you guys about that. But before I do you have any anything come to mind?
I guess it'd be a hidden gem now, but I don't think of it as Lawnmower Man.
Lawnmower Man, yeah.
right? Stephen King, right? I believe it
Yes,
wrote the
yeah, it's
book.
based on a
Yeah,
Stephen King novella, I believe.
yeah, virtual reality, and I think it came out like a little bit in 92, 91, I think. And yeah, I mean, there's a, I think it'd be hard to find. I don't think I've ever seen it on Netflix or Amazon Prime. I can't.
No.
I think you would have to rent it on iTunes or something. Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't think I've seen it in over 20 years now. I mean, it's
Yeah,
been,
that'd be a cool one to
yeah,
interesting to go back and revisit. I know that the virtual reality, the computer graphics in it were terrible, but
terrible.
I can get past that. You know,
Yeah, totally.
some people they want, oh, that's cheesy, whatever, and I go,
Right.
well, like that's what it was at the
Yeah,
time. Like, you know,
yeah,
you gotta. But anyway,
yeah.
um, yeah, I think that actually would be a cool movie. I just read somewhere, and they were had a list of Stephen King movies,
Mm.
and that one was one of the
Mm-hmm.
what they thought was one of the best adaptations,
Mm-hmm.
ranked
Mm-hmm.
high on the list. And so at that time I was like, oh, I need to go back and revisit that one,
Yeah.
because I remember, I'm pretty sure Pierce Brosnan was in it, I believe.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, and I know I had seen it years ago, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely one worth kind of revisiting, especially
Mm-hmm.
when that technology,
Yeah.
that virtual reality kind of technology is still very relevant today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'll sort of along the same lines, another hidden gem, if you guys want to check it out, is one that is called Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Hmm. Never heard of
And
that.
so this is such a cool, if you're a horror movie fan, it's really kind of one of those, it's a really weird movie. At first I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I don't, it kind of starts because it's kind of half documentary, but then when it gets into like the intense, like the killer's after him moments, it goes to like a regular movie. And so then it becomes like a horror movie, but it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like you're seeing behind the camera during the other moments. It Because here's the premise of the movie. So okay, imagine that you live in a world where Michael Myers from Halloween and Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, these are real people. Okay,
Okay.
so these are real killers,
Okay.
and they've made their mark on the world as being, these infamous
Okay.
serial killers, and struck fear into the hearts of all these people. So now imagine that you are the guy who wants to be the next up and coming dude.
It's a coming of age story for a yeah,
Yes.
a killer.
And so he wants to be the next. And so, but the thing is, you meet the guy, and so he's hired a documentary team to
Okay.
document the rise of Leslie Vernon. And he's made up this whole like convoluted backstory of how his character was, the townsfolk had done him wrong, and and all this thing, which is totally not his backstory at all in the context of the movie. And so it's almost like you're going, what, like, who is this guy? And the guy's a little goofy. He's actually kind of a funny, likable guy. And so it's just really
I,
kind of surreal. And then you're
it's
watching, but then like stuff will happen, and you're like, wait a second, and then like, okay, then it goes to like the horror movie thing. But the really cool part is like him going in as him. So it plays off all these tropes in the horror movies where like, oh, they go out, the girl goes out and the door slams behind her and all this, and it's all creepy and all this. Well, it shows him like behind the scenes, like setting this all up with like wires and and like doing all this stuff to like scare I've got to do this because that's what I've
yeah,
got to play the script, and I've got to, but then it really, like, at the end, when you finish it and you watch it, you go, wow, this was like, so it was good on so many kind of different levels.
mm-hmm,
Like where
mm-hmm.
you get to the end and there's like, so it's a very, it's not a big budget film, but the two main leads of the movie are the lady who's hired to do the documentary,
Yep.
and Leslie Vernon himself. and it's called Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. And it's got some great Scott Wilson, who was the old man on the Walking Dead, who was I can't remember what his name was on the Walking Dead. He's the one they had to cut off his foot. But anyway, but great actor, great character actor. You'd recognize him, if you've seen him, kind of thing. But definitely, everybody go check out that one. So a few of the ones we mentioned, where we, lots of movies to go check out there. A couple, Lawnmower Man, Tenet, the 13th floor, the 13th floor, and what's one I just said? The Rise of Leslie Vernon, Behind the Mask for rentals. If you guys are looking for something to check out on one of these, quarantine nights. And then now theaters are back out, and I'd recommend all of the movies that are out right now. I haven't seen the New Mutants, but all of them. Unhinged is a great thriller if you're looking for something like that. Tenet's a big mind-blowing thing, and if you're looking for something silly and comedic, Bill and Ted is a great choice, which you can also get on video on demand. But I think that's it for us here today. So it's been a great pleasure talking with you, Will. Yeah. And he's putting on his mask. He's going back to the real world, to the grind.
Going back to the real world. Yeah.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us, and be sure to subscribe. Check us out on YouTube and anywhere you can listen to podcasts.
Thanks, Ethan.